The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is a Monday in the Riv, and a big Monday it is. We have our first mayoral candidate as a guest, and he's an old friend, and we go back a very, very long way, and we've been on opposite sides of issues often, but we're living proof that you can disagree without being disagreeable, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Paul Coogan, school committee candidate for mayor. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
No, we definitely love having mayoral candidates, especially you, Paul. I mean, you came pretty close in the recall, and I think right now the numbers are pointing towards you by a small margin, but I still think that you might take this primary for sure.
Well, we're going to work as hard as we can to get it, and we're doing what we can right now.
So take a little time to introduce yourself, or you can get right into specifics, because this is what we developed the show. You'll probably be on again before the final, but this isn't like a 30-second bite, as we did last time you were here. We're not trying to make this a debate where you only get sound bites. Right. We want the candidate to have time to introduce himself, explain himself, and obviously you don't need quite as much introduction. You're a school committeeman, you've been around for a while, but the ball's in your court. If you want to make a little introduction, fine.
Well, I would like to make a short introduction. What this campaign is about is really a culture shift in Fall River. That's what's going on regardless. All the plans, all the ideas, all the things that people want to implement, we have to change the culture. We have to change this city to a we type of management versus an I. I think if we get the elected officials, federal, state, local, working together, we can pull Fall River out of this malaise and get things back on track. Right now, you need look no further than the last city council meeting to see just how discombobulated we are. I think conversation, cooperation, and people working together would go a world of good to make Fall River a better place to live for all the residents and for everybody that wants to take a part in government.
You know, Paul, that I think is a great point, and I think that point was really affirmed when we talked about the school. You and I were on different sides, but that was the difference. Both of us are pro-education. We had an issue about the funding and the funding method, but we went out there, we presented our issues. It didn't get, it was about trying to move the educational system forward. It was a piece of that puzzle that we were disagreeing about, but it shows that if we had a common goal and nobody complained, win, lose, or draw. And I think that's the difference. As you said, we did a whole show on that council meeting, which was it was an insult to government that the decorum of anything was degenerated into that point. So I think you made a very good point about this thing. So please go where you want to go.
Well, let's look at the high school. I say, you and I were on opposite sides, but I also know that if you were the clerk of the works or you were in charge of the building committee, I don't think that the morning after an election that we disagreed on the yes or no vote, your first action would have been to fire Mark Costa and I. And that was by noon I had heard we were gone. And I was like, really? I attend all the meetings, and I was up there the other day watching them lift the crane to put the tower back up, and I'm like, fired for what? And the mayor obviously called me twice to go back on to the building committee, but it would have been in a demoted position. I would not have been allowed to vote, and they're public meetings. You guys are all welcome to come whenever you want, and I still go. I try to attend the Thursday meetings once a month about Durfee, because I am concerned about the building in that school, and I do want the taxpayers protected. I have like 2 questions, which is like the rosary for me. Are we under budget? Are we on time? Because everybody remembers what happens with the last school, and we're not going to go down that path again. We under budget? Are we on time? That's where we're going, and we're going to build that school. Speaking of the school, it's hysterical you brought that up to start today's adventures, Chip. But we go out. You went with me.
Yeah.
We went to neighborhood groups, and you'd take the no side, and I take the yes side, and we debate the thing. But we were sold a bill of goods that the taxes weren't going to kick in until 2023. Well, lo and behold, when we all went to the joint meeting of the City Council and School Committee on April 11th, the mayor, all of a sudden, unilaterally, signed a letter. My finance team and I have a presentation. This is the best information available. Lo and behold, he had moved the Durfee tax up to 2020 budget, 3 years early. So the great fee cutter and whatever else he calls himself was going to backdoor a tax increase. He wasn't at all those neighborhood meetings slugging it out with you to try to get people to vote yes. He wasn't with you trying to get people to vote no. We sold the public a bill of goods. But in a blink, he and his finance team proposed raising the taxes now. And it blew up a little bit for him at that meeting. Thank God a couple of councilors brought it up. And I also said, I sold people a bill of goods and you're going to make me out to be a complete liar. We told them it wasn't going to take effect till 2023. And in the interim, I will remember what I said to you. I'm hoping there's ways to reduce the tax by then. This is what went on. But he took the 3 years right out from under it and said, you people can start paying the tax now. He since came off that, but if you read his proposal in writing, he wanted to move it up and grab $2 million off the taxpayers. So I was like, what the heck's going on in this city? Who operates like that? Sell a message and then say, no, we're doing it a different way. No, I don't do that. We're never going to do that in the Coogan administration. If I tell you something's going to happen on a certain time, we're going to follow that timeline, even if it means I got to eat crow. We're not going to come out with that kind of nonsense. And of course, he has since backed off of it, like he did us off the committee. But I don't know who would do that.
Well, I think you bring up a very good point, because it's a point that it's about trust in government, and we don't have it. And I think our debate, and I think during our debate, and CJ was with me alongside me doing these, and it wasn't that it wasn't no on education,
No.
it was no on the funding. And this is one of the reasons I think we brought it up, that we didn't trust the fact that the city and their financial team, who, by the way, said that the tax increase was necessary, the override,
right.
and then at a subsequent meeting after it was approved said it wasn't necessary. So this is the problem that we have in the government, and you just highlighted one, because you can't trust what they say financially, and we haven't been able to do it in a very, very long time. And I think what you just said is very important, that if you make a commitment, you're going to abide by it, because everything that financial team says, by the following week, there's something different.
Right, and that's not going to happen. That will never happen. I guarantee the voters, that will never, ever happen. I won't have Chip Kamara outgoing neighborhood meeting to argue with Paul Coogan, and Paul Coogan spreading a message that the taxes are going to go to 23, and Chip arguing counter, we don't even need to do this, we can find other ways, and then go back and say, oh, by the way, it's in the 2020 budget. That will never happen. I would not do that to anybody in this city, and it's not going to happen that way. We're going to be upfront with people, and if there's a lively debate or a difference of opinion, we're going to make sure we're on point when we're arguing facts, because you can't do that. And again, this was the signed statements from him. It wasn't anybody associated with me that produced this document, and off we go again.
Yeah, we remember that well. We spoke about it on our show about, we had the promise it was 2023, and we didn't blame you, by the way.
I know.
We put the blame squarely where it belonged, and this is one of the problems we have, I see, in the government. And obviously, the people in the middle and the people who talk to me on the street are taxpayers. The taxpayers are getting murdered. There's never a year where we can hold a line on taxes while we spend money. As Milton Friedman once so aptly put it, if you give the government the Sahara Desert, they'll run out of sand in 5 years. Well, guess what? There seems to be no ability to try to control, at least, look, nobody, I'm an advocate. You know both of my children. I'm an advocate for education. And when we spend money wisely, I'll be the first guy to be alongside of you. But when we begin to start throwing money around to and making these stipends and pay, this is what I hear out on the street. The people are livid about the finances, and they said, look, this community, maybe we've forgotten, but we have one of the lowest economies, if not the lowest economy, a $22,000 a year per capita income average. And what are you doing to the people out there? And I want you to kind of respond to I know you're out there.
Well, again, let's look at what's out there. Every year that the mayor's been in office, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. It's like clockwork. You can probably write it for the next 2 years if he's going to be elected. 2.5, 2.5. But he comes out with the stormwater fee, which is an enterprise fund which needs the council approval. He's alleging he has $6 million in found money, surplus money somehow that he can pay for the stormwater fee. If Paul Coogan was the mayor and I had $6 million, I'm going to give it to the taxpayers right now. I don't need to beat up the council. I don't need to fight with them about a stormwater fee. Let's lower the tax rate this year, whatever the number could be, practically speaking, 2.2, but let's give some people a break here. We don't have to go up 2.5%. I've got the $6 million. Let's give it back right now. I don't have to beat up the council. It would be in my budget. And I would show the council where the money's coming from. And if they said, wow, that's a good idea, I don't have to touch the stormwater fee right now. Down the road, I hope we can eliminate all fees. I'd love it if we had tons of money. But it's my position that if I want to make people in Fall River a little more whole right now, let's give them a break right now. I think that's the simple way to handle it, but I haven't seen any ordinance in front of the city council yet for that. I've heard it talked about, but come forward with something. That's what I say, come forward with something in writing so people can hang their hat on it. Similar to this document, although I disagreed with it, you did produce something there that we can talk about.
Well, you're right. And while we're on that subject, I think and we've talked about it at length on our show. We talked about, you talk about the great fee eliminator, but the fact is that you eliminate, whether it's the fee or the bags, the problem we see, and now we see the stormwater, which is attached to a federally mandated, which isn't going to go away this year. You may have enough to pick it up for this year, but this is going to go on forever because it's a very expensive program, and it's federally mandated, and it's also mandated any upgrades that come along with it. But when you eliminate the trash fee per unit, when you eliminate the purple bags, the problem we've had, and maybe you know, maybe you can educate us. When we eliminate a fee, those fees have a specific set of things that they're paying for, they're funding.
Right.
Unless you eliminate what they're funding, you have to get it from somewhere else. So it's only a paper transfer because obviously if I say, well, I'm going to eliminate what I budget for my electric bill, but my electric bill doesn't go away. Right. I still have to pay my electric bill.
Correct.
So, I mean, I don't know, maybe because you've looked at this, you're running for mayor, and this is the thing that disturbs me when you make these, and by the way, he was on this show, and he said it more than once, he admitted that those eliminations were purely political. But it's not the political aspect I'm looking at. As a taxpayer, as a lifelong resident of this city, it disturbs me that you're telling me that you're eliminating something when I know as a fairly, semi-intelligent person that whatever that was paying for didn't go away because you didn't eliminate from the budget. No. So, what do you think about this?
Well, look at it. No one believes that when he eliminated the purple bags that the trash was all of a sudden free. Republic, all the guys that work for Republic or Easy were now working for nothing or getting the money from some other entity, and they were taking the trash to somewhere and no one was paying. That is still in our budget and we're still paying. And that's one of the reasons why I, working with a few councilors, proposed an ordinance to eliminate the purple bag ordinance. If we're going to go forward with a plan for trash, let's bring everyone to the table. the trash is being paid for right now. The mayor has said that marijuana money or whatever's picking it up, that's fine. I'm not bringing the bags back. I am the one, he hasn't proposed one ordinance yet to eliminate the purple bag ordinance out of the laws. Actually, right now, it's still in effect. So my position is, let's take that off the table, eliminate the purple bags. I'm not bringing them back. He's not going to bring them back, although he's the only one in this election that, in a debate with his old opponent, Sam Sutter, from the old election, said, I'm a fan of pay-as-you-throw. I like the bags. That was Jazel Correa. So it's my position, his position changed, so other people's can also. I say we have a comprehensive talk about trash when we're done, but before we get too distracted, let's eliminate the purple bag ordinance, get that off the books, and look at how we're going to fund trash down the road. And it's a nationwide problem. It's not Fall River. Every city and town is grappling with rising trash costs, lack of a place for recyclables, and how are we going to fund it? And that's what we're tackling, and that's how you do things in a comprehensive manner by putting people on notice. This is the plan. So hopefully we can get something going.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's obviously a well thought out plan. So that brings me to a quick question before we get into some areas you maybe want to hit. But I think that the people, you know, they got a pretty good sense of you. But why don't you define what you think will be the difference between a Paul Coogan administration and a Jazel Correa administration? How the management style, the, you know, your priorities as opposed to his priorities. Just give me just a little.
I think it's going to be all about building solid relationships with people. You gave a perfect example. If I'm down at Barcelo's and you're there at the table having a coffee, I'm going to walk over and talk to you. Even though we were on different sides of an issue, we still have a relationship that I consider positive. And those relationships are going to be established with the city council, the federal government officials, the school committee. We're going to work together and we're going to talk. And you know what? I hate to tell you, we're not always going to agree. But we're going to be civil and we're going to have regular engagement about how the city can progress going forward. That's what runs the city. It's not, you know, someone out on, I did this, I did that. No, I don't know. I mean, last week, I was fortunate enough to get something going in the schools. We'll talk about it after. But it was never about me. It was about we and the people and the partners that pitched in to make that possible. Maybe someone has an idea and you got to give them their accolades for that, but the rest of it is all team-oriented. If you can work with people, and like as I said last campaign, within the first 60 days, I plan to visit every piece of property the city of Fall River owns and talk to the guys on the ground, shake their hands, ask them what their job is, and find out from them if there's ways we can help them or they have ideas to improve the efficiency of that operation. Because they're all valuable people. There's a quarterback on the Patriots, but he's nothing without the rest of the team. And as a mayor in the city, and he's nothing without the rest of the team. He's not omnipotent, and he's part of a team. And if we work together and build relationships, I know we can turn the city around.
Well, that sounds good. Any areas that you want to segue, because we can get into a lot of issues about what's going on in the city, but some of your plans for some of the major issues in Fall River.
Well, so people understand, on my website, electpaulcoogan.com, we give a breakdown on 5 or 6 major platform positions that we believe can help the city of Fall River. They're laid out. We've reduced some of the reading. We've put them into bullet form. And I believe those, if someone, you know, the allegation is Paul Coogan has no plans. Paul Coogan's not going to get up here and talk with Chip for a half hour about public safety or the opioid crisis. If there are certain areas we want to talk about, we're going to do that together. But it's my position that when you put your plans in writing, as the mayor did with the tax move up, then there's something to refer to. My plans are all listed on my website, and if someone's concerned about them, they should read them. But I do have plans. Let's look at housing, for example. I believe Fall River has a disproportionate amount of low-income housing. Now, that's a tough issue. That is a tough issue. You know, we have elderly, we have newcomers, we have people that are looking for assistance, and to tell you the truth, we're not going door to door and saying time to move out. But at some point, we may want to step back and find a proposal that will allow us to essentially move it along at a slower rate than we've increased over the years. Bring in more, especially with the train coming, more in market rate housing, and in turn, try to find a way to balance rent increases with our affordable housing, with our market rate, because that's what you have to do. I'm looking at a proposal called, we partnered with Bay Coast Bank last week on that master's program for the Fall River Public Schools, and if there was a way to put a plan forward for our firemen, for our policemen, for our teachers, for our nurses, for any of our what I consider to be hard-working, middle-class foundation of the city type people, either a reduced interest rate, some of our abandoned property, find a way to slide them into it. We're looking at a program that we'd call Buy Here, Live Here, where you commit to live in Fall River for so many years. I don't know who doesn't want those people living on their block. I think they add to every community across the city, whether it's the Flint, the South End, the North End, but to find a way to incorporate their mortgages so that it becomes more affordable for families to live here and to renovate property. We have all kinds of ideas, and people are so kind to me. They're always giving me ideas. Supposing Chipper Camara buys a house for $200,000, and it needs a ton of work. So Chipper says this is going to cost me $40,000 in renovations. Why couldn't we, for a few years, tax the house at $200,000 less the $40,000 or $160,000? So you get a little bit of a tax break, maybe help you with some of the renovation money, and get you in that house. Because when I walk around and I see abandoned property in the city, it just upsets me internally. Boarded up, run down next to a house where someone obviously takes pride in ownership. I'm like, that can't be. We have to do something about these properties so that the whole neighborhood looks good. And we can do it. I know we can. There's still some up in near 5th Street that are still boarded up. We got to get those out of there.
Well, incentive programs for the taxpayer, to me, is a great idea, Paul. We've discussed things along that line on the show before, and I think that's the thing, because it's always disturbed me that we have a disproportionate amount of low-income housing that we advertise to bring people in, and look, as you said, I've always been an advocate, as I am with the opioid, of doing our fair share.
Absolutely.
But the fact is that I don't like to get a disproportionate share. You know, and that's the key. The key is that we need something, and at least in my opinion, we need something like this to bring people in to buy houses. We need apprenticeship programs, because we talk about our economy, but our economy, you can bring in all the businesses you want. If people don't have money and they don't have jobs, if you look at Rhode Island across the border when they ran that apprenticeship program to make welders, and a whole bunch of people got jobs in electric boat. You know, these are the kind of, and I know you're an educator, you're a lifelong educator, but that's the key, I think, that we're looking at, and these are the kind of programs, and I'm glad. See, this is why I like this half-an-hour format, and we'll have you back again, because, see, these are the kind of things you'll never get to in a debate, because it's a 30-second,
Boom,
1
boom,
minute,
yeah.
boom, boom. And, you know, as I said, the housing is struggling while we're putting lipstick on a pig with the streetscapes, and we need things like this. So,
there is so much. This city is full of potential. This city is full of good people, and housing is just something that over time might have got away from us a little bit, and that's what happened. It was not anybody. I don't believe anybody intentionally trying to diminish the quality of life in the city, but I think we have some people in here, and I do want to know. I do want to know who's living in our housing projects. I mean, I'm sorry, but I want to know who's there. I don't want. If we're helping a mom with 2 kids, I'm all for that. But if we have another guy that's working, that's living in there, he can either throw some money in for rent or he can get out. He can throw money in for rent or get out. That's how I'm going to look at these people. You're welcome, but you're going to kick in. We have to do something better for the citizens in this town, and I think we can. And again, I always, people say, well, you want to throw people out. No, I don't. No, I don't. I come from a family of 11 kids, and I used to tell my mother, why did you have so many? And she'd always say to me, who did you want to get rid of? And I said, that's not fair. I said, why didn't you just stop at 5 or 4? But that's how she would word it. And that's the same thing with housing. I'm not looking, Anybody that's here under the rights they have, I want to keep them. I want them to come and contribute. But people that don't belong here, we can do better.
And what else are you looking at as one of your primary issues and primary problems to kind of turn the direction around? Or because we've talked, obviously we know nobody knows the school system better than you. There'd be no candidate more qualified to deal with school issues. You're a lifelong educator. You're on the school committee now. But I mean, in the other areas of the community, we know about the opioid crisis. We know about the issues with jobs. And so in your estimation, because we're running a little short of time, because time flies when we're having fun, but what do you think is one of your really priority issues?
Public safety is going to be right up at the top, finding ways to deliver police services to the community more efficiently and make the neighborhood safe. I know we can do a better job with that, and I'm going to start with one of the first moves I make, I hope, if I'm elected, is I'm going to drive that Tahoe right down to the police station and say, take your car and go on patrol. I'll walk back to the government center and I'll use my car. I don't need a police car to ride around the city of Fall River. I really don't. I'm not being smart. If I'm going to Worcester and we got a conference in Springfield, I may ask to borrow a city car. But as far as my day in, day out driving, my car's fine. I'm going to drive it down there and say, guys, go to work. Take your car and do whatever you want. But and obviously that's just symbolic. It's not going to do a lot. But it's something to show that I want those guys equipped with their own equipment, safely out on the streets. I have all kinds of ideas, like we just had that crazy shooting downtown. Those cameras should have been working. Those cameras should have been working. High crime areas, I want cameras, and I want good cameras. We spent $100,000 on police overtime after that shooting patrolling North Main Street. If I had a choice to pay overtime and not begrudging the policemen, or put $100,000 into cameras, it's going into cameras. They're on 24/7. They're constantly there, and I want them to run efficiently so we can have somebody sitting there looking at these things and see what's going on in our streets. In the Flint, a couple of great spots for cameras. South End, we could bounce some cameras around and make the city safer.
Yeah, and as we wrap it up, I'll give you a little bit of time, but I think what we see is a malaise. We see an attitude, and as you said at the beginning in your opening, Fall River really needs to go back to the old Fall River. I hate to say it, but when we grew up, people didn't have great jobs, but they all had jobs, and every storefront on Pleasant Street, every storefront on South Main was working because people had a little bit of money. And the attitude, and I think people, from what we see, have almost given up. So I think that's a big factor about attitude.
Well, they've given up because they see the way government's functioning. The people in Fall River think, well, the government's helping us when they drive by a street with litter, or they drive by a streetscape half done or cut up after a year. I mean, I go down East Main Street. Slade Street was just a good old North American repaving job, and it looks better than the streetscape. So I don't know what extra money we got. I'll be 100% for streetscapes after we do streets. If we have money, but I want the streets functioning first. I think they look at government and say, what are these guys doing? Do they talk to each other? I mean, when you walk into meetings where people are trying to drop bombs on each other or haymakers, why? Talk before the meeting. Hey, Chip, tonight I'm bringing up public retirement benefits. You got any ideas on that? But then you go into the meeting and you have time. I have time to go like this and say, Chip, your ideas are crazy. I'm not going with that. And you can say, well, I gave them to you and we kicked them around. I'm going to push it. And we have a logical, friendly disagreement. But it's not, you trying to trap me or me trying to catch you and do this. We can do better than this. And I know the city can function if we go to a we versus me type of government. Let's
10 seconds.
Let's work together and turn this city around right now.
Well, thank you very much, Paul, for coming.
Thanks for helping.
A pleasure having you.